All right, let's start with the truth, my friend. Tyler Guyton was supposed to be the guy. The one to finally step into the shoes of a legend and carry the torch at left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, when you use a first-round pick on an offensive lineman, especially a tackle, you expect impact, stability, and eventually, dominance. And the Cowboys made it clear. Guyton was their plan to replace Tyron Smith. But here's the kicker. We're now wondering if that plan was a little too ambitious. Think back to the moment we drafted Tyler. He was the prototype. 6'8", 322 pounds, long arms, explosive measurables, you name it. His draft stock was buzzing. Analysts had him pegged as a late first-rounder, and the Cowboys picked him right where he was projected to go. So technically, on paper, it all made sense. But on the field, that's a different conversation. The moment he stepped into the spotlight, things felt off. He wasn't that polished plug-and-play left tackle we were hoping for. In fact, he looked raw, like someone who needed more time to develop, not someone you throw in to protect your franchise quarterback's blind side in a make-or-break season. Now let me ask you this. Do you think the Cowboys made a mistake expecting too much too soon from Guyton? Vote right here on the screen and tell me in the comments, was the team wrong to bet on Guyton as the immediate Tyron Smith successor? Because here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this all down. We're not here to bash Guyton. We're here to figure out if this is a case of growing pains or a front office miscalculation. And to do that, we've got to rewind. In the next part, we're diving deep into what made Guyton such a hot prospect to begin with. Because understanding the hype helps us understand the disappointment. Let's talk about who Tyler Guyton was coming out of Oklahoma, and why that may have fooled us all. So let's rewind the tape and look at why Tyler Guyton was even in this conversation to begin with. Because at Oklahoma, this dude looked like he was built in a lab for the NFL. Size? Check. Athleticism? Check. Upside? Through the roof. He wasn't just a good prospect. He was a high-ceiling prospect. Scouts drooled over his frame. Like I said earlier, 6'8", 322 pounds, with footwork that reminded people of Trent Williams in his early years. That's rare air. And the word that kept popping up during draft season was tools. Tyler had all the tools. He just needed the right coaching, the right system, and a little time. But here's the twist. He didn't have a ton of starting experience at Oklahoma. That's important. He played on the right side mostly, and only got limited reps at left tackle. So when Dallas drafted him with the intent of starting him at left tackle right away, that was a huge projection, not a guarantee. You and I both know there's a world of difference between projecting talent and plugging in a guy on day one. Let's keep it real. Guyton's tape wasn't perfect. He was late on his punch, sometimes lost leverage, and struggled against speed rushers. But the Cowboys were betting on upside over polish. And maybe, just maybe, they thought they could fast-track his development. But that's where it gets risky, right? And here's where I want to hear from you again. Do you prefer drafting raw, high-upside players like Guyton, or safer, more polished prospects, even if their ceilings aren't as high? Vote in the poll, and let's see where Cowboys Nation stands on that, because the front office clearly leaned into the boom or bust potential here. But did they ignore the red flags? Next, we're going to get into what's really fueling all the concern right now. Because for Guyton, it's not just about what he did in college. It's about how he's looked since putting on the star. Let's talk about what Cowboys insiders are seeing so far, and why some are starting to hit the panic button. All right, let's get into the heart of, what's actually going wrong with Tyler Guyton so far. Because while the Cowboys coaching staff is trying to stay positive in public, behind the scenes, there are whispers. And those whispers are starting to sound more like alarms. From what reporters and insiders are seeing at OTAs and rookie minicamp, Guyton isn't exactly turning heads. In fact, he's struggling with the basics. Footwork, sloppy, timing, off. His hand placement, which was already inconsistent in college, is still a major issue. And when he goes up against speed, he's getting beat off the edge way too easily. Now, to be fair, this is still early. He's a rookie, and no one expects him to be Tyron Smith on day one. But here's the issue. When you take a guy at 29 overall and immediately pencil him in as your blindside protector for Dak Prescott, there's no room for a slow start. That's just the reality. And some Cowboys veterans are reportedly noticing. There's a difference between rookie mistakes and looking overwhelmed. Right now, Guyton looks like a player who might need a full year to develop. Not one who's ready to anchor the left side on opening day. Even worse, the Cowboys don't have a clear backup plan. Asim Richards is still raw. Chuma Edoga, a spot starter at best. If Guyton can't hold the line, Dallas might be scrambling to protect their $40 million quarterback. And that's where things start to feel shaky. So let me throw this to you. Do you think the Cowboys made a mistake by assuming Tyler Guyton could start at left tackle right away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading everyone. Because as much as we all love a good underdog story, this situation feels like it's teetering between long-term development and short-term disaster. In the next chapter, we're diving into what the Cowboys could have done differently in this draft, and why there's growing frustration inside the fan base. Let's be real, my friend. The frustration we're seeing now didn't come out of nowhere. A lot of Cowboys fans were already raising eyebrows on draft night when the pick was announced. And not because they didn't like Tyler Guyton as a prospect, but because of how the Cowboys approached this draft overall. Here's the deal. The Cowboys entered the draft with several glaring needs. Offensive tackle? Sure. But also running back, wide receiver depth, linebacker, you name it. And instead of trading up for a polished tackle like Troy Fautanu, or staying put and grabbing someone like Graham Barton, or even Jackson Powers Johnson to plug in right away, they rolled the dice on upside with Guyton. That's not just a gamble, it's a calculated risk. And it's one that's already showing signs of backfiring. Worse yet, they didn't double down on the offensive line later in the draft. No veteran insurance, no second rookie for competition. They just trusted that Guyton would figure it out. That's a lot to put on one rookie's shoulders, especially when you're talking about the blindside protector for your franchise QB. And fans noticed. Social media was buzzing right after the pick. Why not go safer? Why not grab a guy who played more than one season at left tackle? Even some Cowboys legends were cautious in their praise. Because while Guyton's ceiling is high, his floor is dangerously low, and Dallas isn't exactly in a position to waste time developing players with this aging core. So now we're left asking, was this about ego? Was this the front office trying to prove they could spot a diamond in the rough rather than make the obvious safe move? I want to hear your take on this. If you were in charge on draft night, would you have taken Tyler Guyton or gone with someone more NFL ready? Vote in the poll and let's see how Cowboys Nation feels about this one. And stick with me, because in our final chapter, we'll talk about what the Cowboys coaching staff needs to do next, and whether there's still time to save this situation before it gets worse. So here we are, partner. The Cowboys have their first-round pick struggling at a brand new position. No real veteran backup in sight, and fans starting to get nervous about the season ahead. The question now is simple. What can Dallas do to fix this before it spirals out of control? Let's start with the most obvious solution: coaching. If Tyler Guyton is going to be your guy, then you need to give him every possible tool to succeed. That means offensive line coach Mike Solari and offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer need to go into overdrive. Daily reps, tailored drills, and simplified schemes to build his confidence. Don't throw the entire playbook at him. Let the kid grow week by week. Second, Dallas needs to seriously consider bringing in a veteran tackle before training camp. Someone who's been there, done that. Not necessarily to start, but to mentor, to compete, and to be ready if things go south. There are still some free agents out there with starting experience. Why wait until it's too late? Third, and this is critical, The Cowboys must adjust expectations and game plans early in the season. If Guyton isn't ready to handle elite pass rushers, then you game plan around that. Max protect schemes, quicker releases for Dak Prescott, and designed help from tight ends and running backs. Don't leave your rookie on an island and then act surprised when the house falls down. And finally, accountability. If Guyton keeps struggling and no changes are made, fans aren't just going to blame the rookie. They're going to blame the front office. They're going to blame the coaching staff. And that heat is only going to intensify if it costs Dallas wins in the regular season. So let me ask you this, straight up. Do you think the Cowboys will make the necessary adjustments, or are they too stubborn to pivot? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them all. And vote in the final poll. Do you believe Guyton can turn things around with the right coaching? Yes or no? Thanks for riding with me through this breakdown. Until next time, stay sharp and stay loyal to the star.